There was a recently aired program about Anthony Joshua on Sky Sports recently called AJ History in the Making. And in this program, this documentary, AJ said that his street mentality pulled him through against Vladimir Klitschko. And he seemed to suggest that Klitschko's lack of a street mentality is what cost him in the fight, and partly what led to his defeat. This is an interesting view from Anthony Joshua because for a long time, a very long time in boxing, there was this consensus among boxers, among boxing people, journalists, and the general public that to be a top-level fighter, you have to come from a tough background. You have to come from the streets in order to be a top fighter, in order to make it at the top. And for a long time, I believed this. Back in my youth, I had a street mentality. So I understand the mentality that Anthony Joshua was talking about. But as I got older and as I left all that street stuff behind and took time to reflect on some of the characters that I've encountered over the years on the streets and whatever, and particularly in the realm of boxing through my years as an amateur, at some point it clicked with me that this whole street thing really don't mean anything in the boxing ring. 9 times out of 10. It really doesn't. I have come across countless people on the streets who are respected on the streets or even feared. They are braggadocious and they project an aggressive demeanor, an aggressive personality. But when you take that individual and put them in a situation where they are matched by someone equal to themselves or stronger, so many times I've seen those individuals crumble or run away. And I've seen it in boxing gyms. I've seen street guys in the gym who are boxers throw their toys out of the pram when somebody gets the better of them in a sparring session or in a fight. Well, particularly in sparring sessions, I've seen all kind of things happen. People get out the ring and grab weapons and all kind of stuff like that has happened. If you're really that good with your fists, what are you jumping out the ring for and getting weapons and, you know, trying to make it something other than a sparring session? And these are guys who are supposed to be tough and they're showing this kind of cowardice. So, you know, the streets are not what they used to be. Maybe decades ago, when being a gang member or a gang leader, you had to be someone that could actually fight with your fists or even fight hand to hand with weapons. That takes a different level of bravery than people these days who are running around with guns, who are jumping people, you know, 5, 6 on 1 and stabbing them up, you know, when they're not expecting it, when they're out shopping with a girlfriend, running up and stabbing somebody and running away. Like, I mean, it takes a certain amount of fearlessness in terms of dealing with the consequences, but in terms of actually engaging in a physical altercation, how many people are actually involved in physical altercations on the streets where it's even, where both of you have got a knife and you're going for it, or both of you are fighting fist to fist? That don't happen that often on the streets. That's why I think the street mentality is overblown a lot of the time. One of the bravest fighters of all time, and the guy who's still considered to be, by many, the greatest heavyweight of all time, Muhammad Ali, he weren't from the streets. He was from a middle-class upbringing. Yet he had as much heart as anybody. And you get other guys out there, for example, Zab Judah, he was from the streets. But Zab Judah had a lot of punk in him. A lot of punk in him. And Americans will probably know what I mean when I say punking him, but to elaborate, he was a bit of a diva, Zab Judah. When things weren't going his way, he was the guy to start committing fouls, to start complaining to the referee, so on and so forth. And this is a guy that's from the streets. It's kind of like Mike Tyson when he came out of prison. Doesn't going to prison toughen you up? That's what they say. Well, Tyson seemed to be not as tough coming out of prison as he was when he went into prison. So he had even more of a street mentality coming out of prison, and actually his bravery levels had gone down. He'd lost heart after prison. He hadn't gained heart. And I know in prison they try and break you. They try and degrade you. And maybe that was part of it. But still, I think the street mentality is a little overblown, you know, in terms of its significance in a boxing ring. I think that a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, bravery is something that people are born with. Some people are just born inherently more courageous than other people, and it doesn't really matter what background they come from. Now, you can, through experience and through your environment, you know, the nature versus nurture argument, you can, through your environment, have your personality shaped to a certain extent for experiences and your environment. But I believe that nature has a greater bearing on how you're going to be as a person more often than not than nurture. Nature being your genetic predisposition to have certain character traits. You know, Vitaly Klitschko had the very same upbringing as Vladimir Klitschko, but Vitaly Klitschko was a much more mean character in the ring who demonstrated a lot more heart for the majority of his career than Vladimir did, who demonstrated a lot more killer instinct. He demonstrated a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Finishing instinct. You know, he was a guy that wouldn't let you off the hook when he had you hurt. He'd come in and try and finish you off. More so than his brother. He'd take risks more. He was more of a risk taker than Vladimir. But yet they grew up in the same household with the same parents. Vitaly, I think, just inherently, instinctively, naturally, was a more natural fighter than his brother Vladimir. So, yeah. I get where Anthony Joshua was going, and in his own mind, he thinks the street mentality helped him. Maybe it did to some extent, but I don't think it's the lack of street mentality, if you want to call it street mentality. Or let's say lack of street experience. I don't think it's a lack of street experience that hurt Vladimir in the fight. I just think it's his natural way, it's his natural instinct to be cautious. He's not like his brother, even though it was his brother who advised him to take his foot off the gas. His brother has seen Vladimir capitulate before. He's seen Vladimir run out of gas before against Lamont Brewster. So perhaps he was worried about his brother. It doesn't, just because he's advising his brother to take his foot off the gas, that don't mean Vitaly would do the same thing if he was in there against Anthony Joshua in that position, having just dropped him. He probably wouldn't take his foot off the gas. He'd probably go in there and try to finish him. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hopefully I made some type of sense here. Definitely wasn't my most concise or coherent video, but hopefully I managed to get my point across in whatever convoluted way. So yeah, let me know what you think, people. Drop your comments in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.